Hey guys, London here. Just wanted to let you know that this episode of Cultcast does include references to sexual abuse towards minors in particular. Listener discretion is advised.
You wake up to a knocking on your door. You jolt awake as your parents open the door and come into your room. You wonder what they want. They sit down next to you on your bed, and what they tell you will forever change your world.
They tell you that one of the men in your community, Vernon Howell, has chosen you to be his wife. That's weird, you think?
You're only 15 years old, but your parents seem okay with it.
From that day forward, you are no longer Rachel Jones.
You are Rachel Howell.
Welcome to Cultcast.
Right. Just a disclaimer for this episode. We aren't going to do a script per se. It's going to be more of conversational style. We're trying something a bit new. I hope you guys enjoy it. So, Jesse, let's talk about Koresh's childhood and how he was before the Branch Davidians. Do you know anything about his parents' relationship?
Well, Koresh was born to a 20-year-old man and a 14-year-old girl.
Oof, that is
Yeah.
not a good look. I don't even know how they ended up together. Weird. That's besides the point. But as you can see later in his life and later in this episode, we'll talk about how his pedophilic views and his relationship with young girls, and this has probably affected him in a way.
He probably saw, like, his dad and his mom, like, that age gap, and he was born when she was 14, so he probably really saw nothing wrong with it because he grew up with it.
Yeah, and what's really sad is that it seems like, according to most accounts, that he was actually sexually abused as a kid by family members. His dad, as far as we know, was not in the picture. And so his mom actually had to give him up to relatives for a bit until she grew up and was able to raise him. And then he had abusive stepdads. Multiple of his mom's boyfriends were abusive to him. And then some of his actual blood relatives were the ones who ended up sexually abusing him, which is really, really sad. Again, later in his life, how this affected him, just in the way of how controlling he was and how stuff like that can affect you. Now, Jesse, you know about his first relationship that he had, his first really intimate relationship, I guess we should say. Do you know how old he was and how old this girl was?
He was 19 and she was 16, so that was an illegal relationship. And he had a daughter through that with that girl.
So this relationship with this girl, it's one of the first signs of him being interested in just things, I guess I could say, like the taboo, like someone that young, that age gap, again, probably links back to his parents. He has some deep-seated trauma. Jesse, do you have any more thoughts about just Koresh's childhood and how he was before the Branch Davidians, really?
I mean, it is very unfortunate that he had to go through that, but it really doesn't explain. It explains his actions to some extent, but it also doesn't justify them at all.
It doesn't justify what he did at all. It is just interesting to see how past traumas can really shape your understanding.
Yeah. I actually have a quick list of his relationships, if you don't mind.
Yes.
He had that illegal relationship with a 16-year-old girl. He had a 2-year relationship with his pastor's daughter when she was 15. He was 20. He married Rachel Jones when she was 15 and he was 29. He had a spiritual marriage with Rachel's 12-year-old sister, Michelle. And once he started the Branch Davidians, he did state that every woman of childbearing age from 11 and 12 all the way up, they were now his wife. And he was to father all of their children. And allegedly, he has fathered 16 children.
That's a lot of children. Okay, so now that we've covered some of his childhood traumas and what he was like before the Branch Davidians, one other point I want to add is that he did seem to have just a fascination with, I would say, Christianity, spirituality. It's really weird to see a lot of cult leaders. My mind goes to Jim Jones, how he was a pastor at a normal denomination of Christian church, and then eventually strayed so far away. And it seems like Koresh was following the same thing. He joined the Seventh-day Adventists, which is how he really got into the Branch Davidians in the first place. As you can remember from our last episode, the Branch Davidians were an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventists, and he joined them because he wanted purpose in life, and he actually believed that Lois Roden, who was the leader's wife, was a prophet because the founder of the Branch Davidians was dead. take us more into Lois and Vernon's relationship. Like I mentioned, she was the leader, the current leader of the Branch Davidians. She was previously married to Benjamin Roden, who started the Branch Davidians. He passed away. She became the next leader, and they had a son named George Roden, but he was a little bit mentally unstable. Vernon Howell kind of took a liking, to say the least, to Lois Roden, and Lois Roden kind of saw him as her son because George Roden was not around. And so they got really close. Vernon Howell believed that he was going to be the next prophet of the Branch Davidians. And he thought that God would give him the power to have a child with this 60-year-old woman. And that did not happen. And he convinced her to enter a relationship with him. As you can see, this is part of his controlling personality. And George Roden did not like this. Jesse, you would not like it if let's say your mom was 60 and she was in a relationship with a 20-year-old.
No, I would not.
Yes, so George Roden did what any reasonable person would do. He barged back into the complex, took it over, and named it Rodenville.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, with his relationship with Lois Roden, he did rise to power. Eventually, he became the undisputed leader of the Branch Davidians, and he married 15-year-old Rachel Jones, who we did say at the beginning. Jesse, there's this quote here that someone said about Howell. Would you like to read it for us? Remember, Howell was David Koresh's name before he became leader.
Yeah, Koresh was infatuated with American singer Madonna. God, he claimed, had even said to him, "I will give thee Madonna."
As you can tell, he's really weird. I mentioned earlier, he did break away from the Branch Davidians at one point, and he moved to Israel with his then 16-year-old pregnant wife, Rachel Jones, and on a mountaintop in Israel, he is said to have received his messianic vision. Why do so many cult leaders obsess over revelation?
Probably because it's scary and fear really drives people to make irrational choices, like, for example, joining a cult or doing something that they normally wouldn't do inside that cult.
So true. And this is kind of, I guess, can go along with his controlling personality. He was just a very controlling person. And according to some research we've done, he did have narcissistic personality disorder. He was very paranoid, and he did have schizotypal personality disorder. So, Jesse, would you like to give us a brief overview of narcissistic personality disorder?
Yes. From the Oxford Dictionary, the official definition is a personality disorder characterized by an exaggerated sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for other people, which we actually see this a lot in other cult leaders, how they really don't care about their followers, like they act like they do, but they really don't. They only care about themselves, and they put themselves in charge so that they get the admiration, they don't have to feel empathy for others, and people look up to them because they have like that high need for self like worth.
Another thing is he did believe in the practice of polygamy. As we can see, this ties in with his pedophilic behavior, in how he did see that every woman of childbearing age, even as young as 12, was supposed to be his wife. He also used fear to the sense that he illegally stockpiled guns. And we will talk more about the siege in our next episode. This has been Cultcast, a production of Hahn and Desiato Studios.
Our executive producers were Jesse Desiato and London Hahn. This podcast was made for a project in Mr. Wingert's public speaking class.
Next time on Cultcast, we'll discuss the lasting impacts of the Waco siege, and maybe we'll even talk about weapons.
Weapons!
That's all coming up on the next episode of Cultcast Waco.
I cracked my finger. Community. They tell you that one of they tell you that staying alive.
Okay.
Staying alive.
I go.
Cheeseburgers. And they got freaky.